groups with convictions. The Christian group, Muslim, the Jewish group, the Zoroastrian group, the Taoist group, the Hindu group, and the Buddhist group. And he found out that there was a commonness of the conviction. Now, I'm moving from the friendly universe to some sort of specification. Well, what's happening to me? I have a sense of security. The creed, if you like, or the pre-creed of the high religion specifies what's happening to you as a conviction that there is, and they don't use these words, but he analyzes the literature of these high religions and brings out the notion that for the common person there's a beyond. And it's some way personal. Now, there may be a lot of persons. Depends on the particular religious group. There's a beyond. Now, let's not think in terms of the history of religion, but the experience. We're talking about, say, somebody who went out in the evening and walked up a hill and saw a glorious sunset. And wow, she became high. There's a beyond. And somehow it's a personal experience, but pretty vague. But not only is it transcendent, it's immanent. It's within me. And again, you have to search the language of these people, a kindliness, a loveliness. And this is a characteristic that comes out. Beauty, goodness. And kindliness. And reachable, let's call it, turnable towards and not me alone, and I'm trying to summarize a lot of heavy work here, and the neatest word I can think for the last characteristic of, I think I've got 7 characteristics there. All right, blissful, not as achieved, but as remote. Now, I mentioned the last day that, yeah, some of the high religions differ enormously. The bliss means disappearance, being dissolved in, like say the Hindu tradition, to be with the end of life. But this is, if you like, a primitive reaching from a conviction that I'm not in a hostile universe. This expression coming out in myths and rituals and so on of all these large groups of religious conviction. But it comes out of the spontaneous subject. In ritual dances and so on, in incantations, the within, beauty ancient and ever new, kindliness. And this is the one that, in fact, we are focusing on most in this course, where kindliness is related to understanding. And that understanding, let's go right back to the beginning, that understanding is scientific. Isn't that extraordinary? How can I possibly connect kindliness with scientific? And it adds to the critique I was offering earlier of this notion of scientific. You can imagine somebody who is well trained in psychology and they are not kindly. What's going on? You meet somebody and they say, I've got a master's degree in psychology, and you say immediately, gosh, you must be a very kindly person. Well, the hell you do. Okay? And I mentioned that understanding being affective and emotional, even in relation to nature. We're back into the question of friendly universe. And the faith-seeking understanding, the spontaneous open subject, is reaching towards the universe. There's a problem there of sensitively trying to diagnose bad faith, warped faith, stuck faith, people stuck in a tradition. That this activity is not present. Okay, so faith-seeking understanding can be taken to be a definition of theology. Theologos, talk about God. I'm talking about a sympathetic understanding. I'm talking about a scientific understanding, and I'm talking about a type of prayer. And this is terribly important to think about. I'm not saying that there are other types of prayer, that there aren't other types of prayer that aren't enormously legitimate. In the book I talk about the Zen tradition, and there's a tradition of what's called negative contemplation, where you are not focusing on the what question, but on the is conviction. You are at rest. There's a tremendous Christian tradition of negative mysticism. You're not pushing what questions. And there's a contemporary tradition that I talk about in the book. I think it's section 2.2, Bill Johnson's work on the cloud of unknowing, the Zen tradition, and so on. And he suggests that this is very important for the Christian tradition. Now, my suggestion here is that what is important for the Christian tradition is a contemplation in which faith is seeking understanding. And I think that that's a mature type of Christianity. Think of a normal friendship. Can it be adult if you're just basking in the beauty of the beloved and never saying, who are you and how are you? So again, you work from the analogy of friendship. So I'm moving from faith-seeking understanding to theology as a science to contemplation as prayer. There is a mysterious lover, beloved. Irreverently, I might use the phrase as a basic stance in prayer. Who the hell are you? How does that sound as a form of prayer? Not normally advocated. The want to understand the beloved would seem to be spontaneous, maybe. We're back to that question of maybe. So I'm coming back to the spontaneous subject, reaching within a conviction. The Christian subject has named qualities of the divinity that go beyond this, but that strangely in a lot of traditions leave out this. I quoted Chesterton's quip that Christianity hasn't been found, tried and found wanting. It has been found hard and not tried. The primary invitation is to be like the Father, kindly, kindliness, understanding. That's the dynamic of the Christian tradition, and according to Heiler, it's the basic dynamic in all traditions. In some traditions it gets warped. Think of the Mediterranean basin, all children of Abraham, wow. There's a limited, a group, a bias, a clique. So what I'm pointing towards here is the genuine faithful person, convinced person, is a spontaneous subject that reaches towards understanding, and that is not only theology, but the contemplation within prayer. And that, I'm afraid, is not part of our tradition. And its absence is continuous with the problem we raised at the beginning of scientific, that you can collect data and get no insight.